I just started streaming. Says we are live. Good evening. Good evening to you all out there as we attempt to go live tonight. And I think we've got Facebook up too. And the title is A Rare Interview with T and Doe from 1976. Kathy will be here in a second. We don't know if we'll get to that. It depends on what's happening in the chat room. Kingdom of Heaven is here. Hello. Hello to you. The whole kingdom, huh? I have fun with the names. MW1 Online, hello. Heather Craven, hello everybody. Hello to you. Yeah, this is a rare interview with T and Doe from 1976. And HPM reporting on Heaven's Gate. Looking forward to the live stream. Yes, and what's that? Yeah, the interview is from Brad Steiger. Well, I believe Brad Steiger interviewed T and Doe in 1976, but I don't know if the tape includes the interview that Hayden Hughes did with Dan Garcia in 1974. That became part of the interview, became the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. Now, that book has been republished with the title Inside Heaven's Gate, which is, they pretty much published the same material. We haven't looked at every page because Kathy went and bought it.
And promptly returned it.
And then returned it because we had to pay $55 for it.
So don't do that. Don't be dumb like me.
And it was the same material as UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. So, I mean, if you can't find UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, then I guess that would be the best thing to get if you can afford it. But by the way, I have yet to I have put it on my blog, which is sawyerhg.wordpress.com, some of the highlights of the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. We did have the book in the classroom, but I remember T and Doe never actually talked about it as a meeting that I was aware of, and but did say that they weren't happy with it, and perhaps that's because certain parts of their interview was not included. Now, I haven't listened to the interview, so I don't know exactly, and it's not that great of a recording.
Don't forget to hit the like button.
Yes, it'd be nice to hit the like button. Do you want to say anything else about the interview? Got what we talked about. I'm confused.
Just that we didn't want to say where it's posted
Yeah.
because we don't want Mark and Sarah going after it.
Yeah, we didn't want to say where this interview was posted because we didn't want Mark and Sarah to
Go after that channel.
go after that the person with that posting. And if they want to reveal it, they're welcome to. Andrew Wright is here. He says, "Hey S&C, long time no see. Hope you are well." Yes, we're doing okay. Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you in the chat. And good to have you back. And Sam Hughes says, "Hi Sawyer, hope you and Kathy are doing good." We are. We got some things that we needed to take care of out of the way that reduce some of our stress. And we got plenty more things to do,
To stress about?
to stress about if we want to. But I mean, it's natural to have a certain amount of stress. Talking positively about T and O and their teachings. Heather Craven says that's interesting. Yes, the interview, like I said, is not that easy to hear, but hopefully we can turn it up loud enough to where you can get the gist of it. Now, I just want to say a little bit about that, unless you want to get right to it. And that is that T and O were always just steps ahead of the student body in what they were trying to accomplish by being instruments of their older member in the next level, who was during the time that T and O were in vehicles, was on a spacecraft assisting them. Now they also designed what they were going to be given before they came. I know that's kind of hard to imagine, but it is that real, that they were fed information in such a way to where they had to pull it in and they had to ask questions of their older member. And according to the timing that they even designed, they were given understandings so that the students wouldn't be left in the dust. I'm putting that in my own words, because the concepts and the understandings that they were bringing to the student body, the souls that were also returning to take over human vehicles in order to be a part of the graduation classroom, which includes vehicles now that have souls that are trying to take over those vehicles for their next step in graduation, which isn't the same kind of graduation as the 38 plus DOE. We have different tasks. Anyway, they were the human brain cannot actually process all the information and all the concepts and all the requirements easily without being kind of spoon fed. And T and O talked about that movie, The Sound of Music, where one of the songs, which they said the next level prepared, it had humans prepare in such a way that it gave an outline of what their task was. And in one of the songs, it was a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
That's Mary Poppins.
Was it?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think that was Mary Poppins.
It's Julie Andrews.
It's Julie Andrews, yes.
Right. And it's Mary Poppins.
I don't think so. We'll have to look it up, though.
I
Okay?
know I'm right.
You know you're right?
Yep.
I want to look it up right now so we don't leave anybody. I don't want to mislead anybody.
Maybe it was in both movies, but it was 100% in Mary Poppins.
Sugar help the medicine go down come from. Inspired by the polio vaccine, spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. The iconic song lyric from the 1964 Disney film Mary Poppins is a lesson in making otherwise mundane or daunting tasks more enjoyable. So thank you for that correction, Kathy. I appreciate it. I've been saying that wrong. But the reason I brought it up is still the same because Tiendo talked about lessons as medicine. And that you needed to give the vehicles a certain amount of help to swallow the medicine. So, in other words, sometimes, I mean, that was even in the form of a diet in terms of like having a treat, like ice cream or something, uh, to, or to give them, or to give us like some really tantalizing kind of information that makes the brain really, attentive, like talking about UFOs or something, or uh, in order to swallow things that are harder for the vehicle to swallow in terms of discipline over the vehicle. So anyway, I'm glad we searched that out, and I'm wrong about that, where that came from. Uh, anyway, so moving on with that. So anyway, what I was trying to say was that Tiendo, uh, you'll hear things in the early materials that you may think that did change going on. That's what I'm talking about, is that they were giving us what we needed at that time. And that's not deceitful, because actually what they gave us at that time was completely accurate for that time. And it didn't mean that, they were trying to lead us into something, so that, but they wanted to give us a chance, because if certain things were, well, like in 1978, T at a meeting said that you need to give us your will. And I remember sitting there and thinking, okay, yeah, I knew that. I mean, it was like normal for me to think that. But T told Doe after that Doe told us after T left her vehicle that she felt like you were going to lose half the student body by saying that. And the fact is that based on the numbers at that time compared to the numbers at the end, more than half left, but maybe not because of that one saying, but things related to that saying. In other words, being given procedures upon procedures upon procedures on how to do things that seem like they're like, why are they being so adamant about these little things that we needed to follow? It was because we needed to learn how to follow instructions, because they don't need us on their spacecrafts. They exist whether we exist or not. And so this was our opportunity to become crew members with them. And they don't want just anybody. They don't need people. They don't need a certain amount of numbers. But they provide it as a joy for them to provide the option to actually evolve beyond the human condition, which is the whole reason that the garden, the earth, was created as a garden for the growing of souls. Anyway, so I wanted to say that because there's been a lot of criticism of people that listen to the tapes from the Beyond Humans, from the UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, not the tapes, but the writings of the interviews of things that they said then that they may think don't apply, didn't apply in the end, but I can actually talk to how they all still applied. But it's not gonna, but people can say that, well, you're just making excuses. And that's part of the territory, that there's gonna be somebody that's gonna, you know, see it in a negative way when there was no negativity at all to anything that Tiendo did. And that's not like a Pollyanna kind of viewpoint. It's actually backed up by facts throughout but somebody has to actually be willing to look at the facts by listening to the audios and the videos and reading the book on the Heaven's Gate website, which is back up, by the way. All right, so with that said, I go to chat room unless you want to. So let's see. EDA is here, 973. Hi, hang tough. Thank you. Appreciate all the positivity. Heather Craven says, good idea. Cool. MW1 Online says, is Kathy on today? Yeah, you can see her. She's here now, of course. AC says, hey guys. Hello to you. MW1 Online put some kind of picture there. I don't know. It's like the infinity, like the 8 infinity sign. And Heather Craven says, that's good news. And HPM reporting Heaven's Gate says, I am okay with people knowing. I am the one who posted the interview. See my channel for a video with more info. Yes, so I just read that. So now you know where we got the clip. Andrew Wright says, I finally got to watch the HBO series. I think I preferred it to the 2021. Yeah, well, the 2021, I agree, Andrew, is like they really went to town building everything into a, this distorted point of view of Doe being insane and everybody else that believed in him being brainwashed by him. And it couldn't be further from the truth if you actually look at the data. And I know Andrew's looked at a lot of the data, so I can understand why you're saying that. Where the HBO series was a little bit more objective. 2020 wouldn't even let me comment, the ABC people, on one of their blog posts or whatever it was. I added some comments to it of things that weren't accurate, and it blocked me, so I couldn't even talk. And it was a combined block by a number of the individuals, one of which was the person that interviewed me. I'm not giving any names, but they definitely don't want to give any inkling of what could be seen as support for the truth. They just want to put out their message so that they seem like, they are not supporting, which is understandable because a human doesn't have the perspective of how great the reality was to everything that Tiendo taught. A lot of people don't believe in spirits, they believe in religion, and religions are all distorted, or they have some kind of idea of spirituality that's been distorted. And so for them, and many of the people that, even the person that interviewed me, that person may feel like they believe in certain things, but they have a job, so they don't want to lose their job, so they're not going to stand up for what what I say or what T and O say. Understandable, I understand that, but it doesn't make it. I'm not the judge of anybody else, and none of us are. T and O and crew are our judges. MW1 Online says, did Doe show signs of cancer? I'm not aware of any signs of cancer. I know I've heard that reported. But I think the autopsy report said that there were no signs of cancer on his vehicle. He had a hernia operation while I was still in the classroom. All right, so I'm caught up there, but there's a bunch of stuff happening in the chat room and the Facebook page. I see Erin and Christine. Byron is there saying hello. Hello to you.
Hey, Erin.
She says, I miss you all so much. And that she's watching. And she said it was Mary Poppins. I could have saved myself, I guess that's an example, though, of, people say that the students of Heaven's Gate were gullible and naive and were led down the path. They were weak-minded. Their lives were broken before they joined, or they had a need to be a part of something greater than themselves, and they weren't objective, and every manner of detrimental, negative kind of thinking has been lumped on them. And in reality, they were very stubborn in some ways. They didn't believe everything they were told, even by Doe and T. They had to fight doubts on their own. Whether T and Doe said it would, where T and Doe would say something, and it didn't mean that they all believed it. We didn't have repetitive requirements of like they do in some of the religions, where they say, okay, just say the Our Father and Hail Mary 10 times and you'll be forgiven, of your trespasses, or you go to school, you go to the Bible class, and they teach you to memorize the Bible, and they get you to say the prayers out loud over and over again, or sing the Psalms out loud over and over again, all that kind of stuff. And that happens with all the religions to some degree. That's what makes them so brainwashing of people. We didn't have any of that. We had times where they encouraged us to re-listen to tapes, but then so we would re-listen to it one time, and then it was optional after that. And so if somebody didn't put out the effort to re-listen to the tapes of the meetings that they were giving to us, sometimes a couple times a week or more, then we weren't going to really grasp everything they were teaching that well. And I'm evidence of that. There's a lot of things in the tapes that when I listened to them again, I realized that, gosh, was I not paying attention? Or, but there's some things that stuck very well with me. But the thing is, the only way that, the term brainwashing is really not appropriate because it's not in the human sense. But that's where the idea of repentance, actually, if you look up the word repentance in the New Testament, like the way that John the Baptist was recorded as saying, repent, repent, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. If you look at the meaning in the Greek, it meant change your mind, which means change your thinking. And so that's, and also the idea of baptism is actually washing the old you out. And Jesus also talked about that as sweeping out your house of the discarnates, of the lower forces, of the spirits of the negative evil spirits, the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, their mind, sweeping that out of our minds, sweeping the negativity out of our minds that they stimulate, and that other humans become the instruments of stimulating, and filling our minds only with the teachings from our older member, the older member that we recognize and want to be with, and have to prove to Tiendo that we wanted to be with. And prove in ways that we didn't even know we were trying to. I didn't really know that I was trying to prove to them anything. Some of the students probably did have that perspective of having to prove to them to stay in the classroom. But they showed us by their actions that we had to make headway on the classroom, on the training program. Otherwise, because they can only go as fast as the slowest member. And it doesn't mean that people were looked down upon if they were slow, because that's a judgment against them. And that was one of the lessons, that we couldn't judge each other. But Tiendo knew that some individuals were dragging their feet. They used that term, dragging their feet. And they were never ostracizing of those people, those students. But they did, and they didn't actually single people out that often as dragging their feet, unless they could handle it. And you can see in the tapes where Doe, like the tape that we listened to last week, where Lagodi was offering suggestions on how to go public before the 1994 public ministry that we did.
This is the tape that Sawyer and I listened to together.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Right. And Doe told Lagodi that he was
Not asking the questions right?
Yeah, he wasn't phrasing things in the way that a member of the next level would phrase things with an older member. And Doe was clearly an older member, and Lagodi knew that Doe was right. When Doe was correcting him, he on the spot corrected himself. Yes. And that shows that Lagodi's mind was very developed, because other people would, kind of stew with it and not be able to take that kind of correction. Now, Doe wouldn't probably give certain individuals that kind of direct correction on the spot unless he knew that they could handle it. And he knew that Lagodi could handle it. And so that goes to the idea of, like when when I brought up the spoonful of sugar coming from the Sound of Music, I was showing my own stubbornness in the way I remembered things, and I could be wrong. And I probably should have prefaced it with, I could be wrong. So then but then immediately when I searched it, I believe that I could have been more stubborn. I could have said, well, maybe it was also in there, and I could have searched it again, but I don't feel like I need to do that. I feel like I want to be corrected. And there's not anything that I don't want to be corrected on. But it's not the job of anybody else to correct me, but Kathy's my partner. And we're working together, and I think she wants to be corrected by me. If she says something that might not be from Tiendo's mind, and vice versa. And that's the way partnerships work. If you have a partnership like that, great. If you don't, then you can ask anybody to be your check on something. Certain people, if you ask to be your check, they'll abuse you, because they won't see, well, I'm sure people that are in the chat have experience in life to where, we've all had to work with other people. And whether it's in our vehicles, families, or co-workers or partners, and that all becomes a lesson ground for us. because the human kingdom is a school. The entire human kingdom is a school that the next level is running. But they've allowed the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls to be here to influence humans for generations and generations. But they keep a balance so that when people ask for help, when they project that asking for help to the highest source they can imagine existing in the universe, among the stars, then the next level has a way of identifying that kind of communication desire. And they actually then pay attention to those individuals that are asking for that help and try to help them in the way that they can receive that help the best. And they know how to judge what we can handle and what we can't handle. And if we get too much medicine to handle, we can ask them to, help us, relieve some of the stress. And Tiendo said that they would reduce the bombardment. They called it bombardment from the boogers. The lower forces were considered to be boogers. That was the terminology they used, I guess, to make it not so serious sounding, even though it is very serious. But it doesn't sound spiritual when you put it in those terms. And they were trying to always make things more real, because the spiritual terminology isn't as real as what's really happening a lot of times. So Jeremy Dick says, did Doe not like his vehicle's name, Marshall? No, but Doe outgrew and he awakened. And part of the awakening that anybody can choose is, if they feel to, is to take a new name. And it's not like it's a requirement, but it was a requirement for that classroom. But that classroom doesn't exist right now, by the way. That same classroom doesn't exist right now. We have a different set of instructions and lessons. There's nothing in the classroom the major offenses and the lesser offenses and the 17 steps are all our primary lesson steps.
You can find those in the Heaven's Gate book. You can find those online at heavensgate.com. And it lists out in the table of contents, I believe, the 17 steps, major and lesser offenses. If anybody wanted to read those.
Yes, but choosing a new name isn't in those materials. And there's even a document in the Heaven's Gate book that talks about how the lesson steps are different after they left.
Is that away team services?
Well, maybe, yeah, there too, but also is a document actually that's called Requirements of the Classroom or something like that. And it says in it, on the top of it, that this lesson step is not provided anymore. Yeah, it'd be good if you can find it. The specific requirements for being part of the classroom wasn't being provided anymore as of the posting of that. And they took silly names at first, like Chippendale and Guinea and Pig, and but in the interview that we might get to play, I'm not sure if it's in this interview or the one that was, I believe, was Hayden Hughes and Dan Garcia interviewing. They used the name Bonnie and Herf. Doe didn't go by Marshall very often, I think, because I remember T calling him in that interview Herf, because that was his vehicle's middle name. But then they didn't keep that very long, and then when they went public and ended up with students, they didn't expect to have students. They expected to just tell the truth and go to the next town and tell the truth to some people. Yeah, so the document was, it says in the top, it's the guidelines that were sent to those who were seriously considering joining the class, those who had responded to articles, ads, and correspondence, which was written on October 23rd, 1993. It says, note, this particular type of classroom experience is no longer offered. And then it says Total Overcomers classroom admission requirements. And I encourage everybody to go on to the Heaven's Gate website to understand what they were listing as those requirements to be in that classroom with Doe when he was present in his vehicle, in the vehicle that he chose to take over for the task. Let's see, where was I? So names, yes, and then so they took the name when they realized that some students wanted to follow them in April 1975, because some students said, "Can we want to go with you? We want to learn from you." They said, "Well, I guess we weren't really looking forward to that, or we weren't too keen on that. But since we have students now, I guess you can call us." The students asked what they should call them, and they said, "Well, I guess you can call us Bo and Peep because we now have sheep." And they went by that name for several years until they changed their names to T and Doe, which Peep was T and Bo became Doe, named after the Sound of Music notes on the scale of Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. All right, so move on from that. Autistic Vegan is here, giving us applause. Thank you. RTT says, hello, Sawyer and Kat. I hope you are both doing better. Yes, we are. I think we're doing better, right? We've got plenty of challenges, but everybody else does too, right? This world is full of challenges. So as long as we keep on asking T and Do for help with our challenges, they'll help us. It's not like a blanket kind of thing. They wait for us each time to ask us for help. Heather Craven, the lower forces don't wait for us to ask for anything. They just push things on us. That's their way because they're primitive. And they think they're all highfalutin and intelligent and spiritual and holy and all these thoughts, and they push things on you and they manipulate and they use deceit and they justify their deceit, thinking that they need to hide things from us because otherwise we might not be able to comprehend the truth and stuff, baloney like that. And they use humans to do that. And humans don't even know they're being used that way a lot of times. Most of the time, I think, I would say, I might be wrong about that. Heather Craven says, weren't most of the students college educated? Well, a number were. I don't know if I could say most or not. Because, see, we didn't talk about the past. That was one of the things we were leaving behind. And so,
How many years of college did you have?
well, I took 2 semesters of college, specializing in business education, which I hated, but it was the only thing that I could do. So I just went along with it because my vehicle's mother wanted to, see me go to college to try to make something of myself. And then I left. I just dropped acid the whole time I was in college in West Virginia. And then a couple of years later, I went to community college. I took one semester, and it wasn't doing anything for me. So that's it. That's all I had. And now Milordi, I think, had a degree, and I think Norrody had a degree in technical writing, and Milordi had a degree in computer programming. Uh, I'm not positive that they had degrees, but they certainly were able to get really good jobs with the banking system and with, like, Norrody was a technical writer, and she was the manager of Texas Instruments in Texas for the technical writing department. And she had a number of jobs that were, Milody worked for MTech, which was a banking conglomerate that was, I think, or another one that was Hewlett Packard, I think she worked for as a program analyst manager, working in COBOL. Anyway, that's just an example. Lagodi was a rancher and I don't know if he was college educated, but he was a well-to-do business person. And he had ranches. I think he had horses, and was a real estate person of some sort. And Kadoti was, anyway, I can go through the list of the people I know, but there were a number that were college educated, yes.
Kadoti didn't leave with the 38.
No, he dropped out in approximately 1988. Doe actually asked him to be in a halfway situation in Dallas.
He did some of the filming, right?
Yes. I don't know if he was initially in charge of the camera that somebody gave them to take pictures of a spacecraft picking them up, if that's the way it happened in the in 1975, the early 70s. Not the early 70s, but the mid to late 70s. And he was part of the crew that was actually designing the first movie script. And that Alodi was one of the 38, was the illustrator for. And Dan Sodi was also an illustrator, but not for that project. And but Kadoti had experience in the movie industry. He was working for Gary Kirsch, Hollywood producer, who's well known, even to this day, if he's still around in his vehicle. But they had a relationship with Stanley Kubrick to some degree, and he was working on Kadoti was working on documentaries, and at the time, so I imagine he had some kind of degree for that. Okay, so Heather Craven says they were very intelligent about computers. Yes, and a lot of that actually happened while in the classroom. Because at first, when they decided that we needed to go out and get jobs in the world, because for the first, until approximately 1980, we were basically supported by donations. And from 1975 to 1980. And then they felt like we needed to get jobs. And so we got jobs that were not related to skills that we had in the world because they didn't want us to tune into our old self and what we had learned then. And so, but I didn't have any skills per se. So I got jobs in kitchens and as a waiter in Pizza Hut in Kerrville and Kmart. Other people got similar kind of jobs. And then T&O wanted us to upgrade for a number of reasons because they wanted more consistent scheduling so that they could have meetings internally when everybody would be there instead of the restaurant jobs that require some night work and stuff like that. So they had us look for office jobs. And that's when they brought in computers. And so we were able to teach ourselves office skills and programming skills. So I became a programmer while I was in the classroom. A number of individuals had the same kind of things happening to where they became efficient with the technologies while in the classroom. Casey says hello. Hello to you. And MW1 Online says, do you two have the same best friend? I think I feel like Kathy's my best friend. CA
Other than
says,
that, we don't really have friends.
no, other than that, we don't really have.
I mean, I'm sure that I have not maintained friends. I mean, I have people that I've known for a while. I would consider Aaron a friend, um, but we don't live in the same place, and our communication is sporadic a lot of the time. So I'm a distant, quote unquote, friend.
Yeah, I have friends from when I lived in Vermont, and I'm still in touch with them. I feel close to them in a friendship kind of way. Um, but I don't think in terms of best.
Yeah,
Okay, CA says hello to all. Hello. MW1 Online says, not many women enjoy really short hair.
I've had my hair like this. The first time I shaved my head, I was about 19, and I'm 48 now.
Checker222 says, what happened to the illustrations for the script? Did you ever see them? Well, yeah. There were some of them that were posted on the HBO Max, and we used one as our thumbnail that I'm not sure if I should say who sent it to us, but.
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Right.
Mark and Sarah, which we don't want to talk about, but they've claimed copyright over everything. So we're trying to be careful about what we use, but at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, if they want to add counts of using every little tiny thing, uh, you know, it's so ridiculous in some ways. But we don't really want to get into that tonight.
No more ranting.
Did the student? So Checker says, "Oh well, yeah." Well, so anyway, what happened to the illustrations though is that while I was still in the classroom, we had a little company that was called Astrologics, and we had an office, and we gave meetings to the public. We didn't tell them who we were. We weren't the UFO cult. That was the only identity that we had at that time in 1982. Anyway, but we had prints made of all of these illustrations, and they were on the wall, and then they were put in a gallery, I think in Albuquerque. After that, and I don't know if they sold or not. I wasn't part of that project, and my understanding is that Mark and Sarah may have them, but Rio ended up with them, I think. And whether they may have given copies to Mark and Sarah, I don't know, but they claim copyright over all of them, and so that's about that.
Probably shouldn't have used it, but
So I deleted them from my Facebook page where I had them posted for years and years. But they're in a book called from the New York Post. Some of them. So I think since they were published in the New York Post, those at least can be used by people.
I don't think so.
Well, one of them was the one that we got recently that was in the HBO Max with the older member coming down the ramp.
Yeah, I know, but according to them, everything is copyrighted and trademarked, and they'll sue our ass.
So then they must have gave permission for the New York Post to use those?
Or the New York Post just did, and Mark and Sarah only want to sue us.
Yeah, it's possible that that was the case because the New York Post published their book, which wasn't that great, but it had a lot of details in it, about the news reporting. But the illustrations in that were published in 1997, I believe, right before the story kind of left the news when the Princess Diana story started, when she died in that car accident, or whatever that,
Murdered.
or she was murdered in that car accident. Or I guess maybe it wasn't an accident. I don't know exactly. But so Heather Craven says, did the students grow gardens for food? At one time we did.
That's a good question.
Yeah, at one time we did. We were in California. We were living in a, a large house that John Wayne used to own when he was alive. I don't know how many houses he had in that area. It was in Newport Beach, I think. Uh, and at that time we were on a diet that was like raw foods only, and nothing, no meats, no carbohydrates, except what you would get like in avocados and bananas. But and we were growing sprouts, and so we had racks and racks throughout the house of buckwheat sprouts and sunflower seed sprouts, and we were also growing wheatgrass, and we were drinking wheatgrass juice every day, and we were making the sprouts into like these green thing mixed with apples so that it wouldn't be so bitter. These green drinks that were, kind of hard to get down, but so that was one time when we were growing our own food. It didn't last that long, maybe some months, few months. Other than that, I don't think. I know there was a time where we were growing a little bit outside the houses where we lived, but I wasn't on that project, and I don't really know what was grown. Casey Strange says, Sawyer, when the class were living in different houses, did they watch any news programming? I heard Tian forbade television, but I imagine the class still kept an eye on the public somehow. Yeah, it wasn't forbidden.
And
We
I did
had,
not forbid television watching. Not that I was there or anything, but there are several tapes where Doe is talking about, um, you know, this reports on or Dan Rather or something, and they class needed to stop asking so many questions or they were going to miss their show. So they watched.
yeah, the first I remember television watching was in approximately 1977, 8, around then, because we were living in outdoors, actually, but we were renting land, leasing land from a big rancher in Wyoming, or it was northern Colorado. I don't remember exactly which. But there was well, actually, the one that was in Wyoming was in southern Wyoming, near the Vitavue Medicine Bow National Forest, where we lived at first in 1976. And on this land, there was a building that was it was a schoolhouse, actually, originally. It was like a one-room schoolhouse. It was probably I don't know how big this room is, but probably about the size of this room, maybe a little bit bigger, which I don't know how many feet that is, but maybe it's 20 by 15 or something, maybe a little bigger than that. Anyway, but and in that schoolhouse, we also had generators in that living outdoors that ran on gasoline. We buried them under the ground so they wouldn't be so noisy. And and so we ran a TV that had an antenna on it, and we were able to get The Price is Right, a little bit of Jeopardy. I don't remember if in that place we got um, many other shows, but that's what, that's what we watched there. Okay. But then when we moved into houses, we had TV viewing, not nightly, but once a week maybe. And then as it progressed in the classroom, we ended up having viewing every night. And we had videos, and we went to the movies, and maybe every 2 weeks we went to the movies out. They called it the picture show, and we got videos all the time, rented them, and we would record things so that we could play them back when everybody would be there. Because if people were in jobs in the world, they couldn't see it necessarily at the time something was broadcast. We watched all kinds of TV shows. I just talked about one of them that Kathy mentioned today. Quantum Leap. We saw that, and we saw Murder, She Wrote, and Matlock, and mysteries were, we watched, and we had
obviously Star Trek. Everybody brings Star Trek
Star Trek, and so we had a lot of TV viewing actually. And the news, though, since you brought that up, we actually had satellite feeds of the API, and maybe it was like Associated Press, International, and the other news service.
Reuters?
No, it wasn't Reuters. It was another one with those 3 letters. But anyway, the way they were communicating with.
Talked about CNN.
It wasn't CNN.
No, but I remember him in a tape talking about CNN.
Oh yeah, because we watched it on satellite. But I remember when we had.
And TBN.
Yeah, Trinity Broadcasting. And.
Not that that's news.
No, but sometimes they had
do
news.
a lot. Yeah, they did. Yeah. The 700 Club.
The 700. Yeah, I don't remember watching that much.
Thank God.
Yeah, but we watched all the preachers at the time in the 90s, in the late 80s and the 90s when Doe was thinking about.
I liked Benny Hinn.
Going public again. Yeah, Benny Hinn was somebody.
Benny Hinn would put his hands up and 100 people would fall back.
Yeah. That was funny. Doe got a laugh out of that.
Yeah, it was he was slapping people with the Bible. He didn't do that, but that's kind of what he would be like, be healed, and they'd be like,
We were watching Zubin Mater, I think was the name of the individual. He was one of the Messianic Jews. And then the people from the Seventh-day Adventists we were watching online on satellite dish, a lot of this. But there was a ticker tape thing that was happening, which was what the newsrooms were getting from the API. So it would just going across the screen. We had a TV in every room of the house. Well, we didn't have them in the rest chambers where we slept. But in the bathrooms, we had TVs, a TV, and in the living room, we had a couple TVs on big columns so that we could see them, and they were big TVs. They weren't as big as some of the big screens now, but they were 22-inch probably, and so that could be watched. There was optional viewing, and then there was required viewing, and so they wanted us to keep up with the news, and we had newspapers, and we had news.
Watch the Ross Perot stuff.
Yeah,
we talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, Ross Perot.
And Waco.
That's right. I was watching the Waco when it was caught on fire. I was actually in Doe's quarters. Well, the house he was living in, not his actual bedroom, rest chamber. But with Liv Odie, Jan Odie, and Sue Odie was my partner at the time. And we watched that catch on fire on the TV.
Well, I wouldn't say it caught on fire.
It was maybe set on fire?
Yeah.
I know there was.
Whether it was by the government or by the Branch Davidians themselves, it was set on fire.
Right.
Such a tragedy.
Yeah. We watched 18.
It was also a tragedy that David Koresh was abusing the female members of that as well. So absolutely. I don't mean to say, because of what happened, that was such a tragedy and they were in the right, but.
And they were shooting at people to kill them.
Yeah, I'm very opposed to any abuse of women or men for that matter, but it really upsets me. We were watching this thing. Sawyer and I were watching the news yesterday, and Bill Cosby, which, man, that was such a, when that came out, it was just like, wow, really? America's dad. And then hundreds of women coming forward. And just imagine that abuse and literally being raped by Bill Cosby, like, not being able to say anything because he's Bill freaking Cosby. And his family friend, I don't know if it's necessarily his lawyer, was attacking the other lawyer lady. I can't remember what her name is. She's every single Hollywood case. It seems like she shows up, but he was attacking her and saying, "Really, really, our black icon? Really, you're attacking our black icon?" It's like, who cares what color he is? He freaking raped over 200 women. Like, I don't give a shit. Whatever. Like, psh, you can burn in hell for all I care. Fucking pig. Sorry. See, I get so mad. Do not rape women.
Yeah.
And then expect to, like, oh, you're an icon, so you can get away with it.
Yeah, right. Like that's the good old boy, you know.
How many newscasters got let go because of all their harassment?
Yeah, and coaches and all kinds of
Yeah,
people.
all the stuff with the NFL and the
Priests
cheerleaders and making them be escorts and basically prostitutes. Like,
Yeah,
leave us alone.
yeah, really.
Makes me so mad.
So I think I kind of gave you. Okay, so Jeremy says the TV show Breaking Bad is set in Albuquerque. Did you watch that TV show? I don't remember watching that one. Oh yeah, Breaking Bad. I watched that on Netflix, but no, we weren't in the group, and the group was only until 1997, and I was only in them with them till 1994. So I don't know what they watched after I left.
You joined in 1975?
I joined in 75, yes. Checker222 says, interesting. Thanks for the answering my question. I appreciate that. I'm sorry I missed seeing the illustrations. Well, they're around. You'll see them soon enough. We put a few in our thumbnails. There's not a whole lot, but they'll be around again. Checker says, new question. Who is your favorite Star Trek The Next Generation character or favorite episode? I don't know if I have a favorite episode, but I liked when the Q was involved. I also liked when Mark Twain was depicted for various reasons that I don't want to really go into right now, take the time for. But there were a number of episodes that were fun, like when the holodeck, talking about that, because Doe used that as an example. He said the human kingdom was like a holodeck, but a biological one, you know, to where it was like even the holodeck was depicted as you could get hurt, you know, with that simulated, those battles and stuff. So that's the way it is in the human kingdom. We can get hurt, our vehicles can be damaged in this holodeck, but that doesn't mean that it's not a simulated environment in a sense, because we're all temporary beings here in the human kingdom. We don't exist very long, really. I mean, it's long for us, but you know, you look at insects and things relative to their lifespan, they think they're probably living for a long time. I mean, I'm not saying they think that, but there is a relationship like that. You know, to humans, think we're living a long time, but relative to the next level, it's very, very small period of time. So, and we don't really exist because we're actually copies. You know, T said in the Black Hawk tapes, you know, that we're a copy. And she's, you know, when she said that, I didn't really tune into it, I must admit. But it's because because we became replicated by uh, by Adam and Eve. You know, that actually wasn't just a story. There was some truth to the way that was stimulating the beginning of the experiment to subject humans, not humans, but subject members of the next level that had grown to a certain degree to be a member of the next level, but had some additional lessons to learn because of the way that some had graduated to a certain level of next level participation, but still ended up breaking away from the next level to do their own thing. And so the next level didn't want to repeat that. And so they decided to set up an experiment to where one of their own could be subject to the influence by those lower forces in a human environment. And so that's what Adam was. And then when he started to give into human behavior by wanting a helpmate at first, instead of being satisfied with being by himself and having a job for his older member, the next level gave him a helpmate that they took from his genetic code, and then they ended up becoming mates to propagate the human kingdom, and that became the beginning of the lesson program, so that souls could be brought back that were of some equivalence to the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls in their development on different planets, where there are people growing in different degrees on different planets that don't have those lower forces. So the lower forces provide a certain environment for a special kind of growth that only was taking place here on the Earth, unless there was the equivalent Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls on another garden where this same kind of experiment was taking place. But Tiendo felt like it was really happening only here for the most part. And so maybe that's all I need to go through regarding that. But the reason why the lower forces, those space alien souls, were allowed to be here was to give us a choice to become like them or to become like the older members of the next level. And so the next level was always providing help to humans to keep a balance on the lesson program, so that, because if they weren't here helping us learn what the lesson program is, then the Luciferians would have taken us all over, and everybody would be just a plant reacting to what those souls were imposing on us. But because the next level was providing instructions, like through the Moses classroom and then the Elijah classroom, the Enoch classroom before Moses, and then the Jesus classroom, uh, it was giving the civilization a chance to see what the what the lesson program was in order to grow to eventually graduate. So that's made it a free will environment. Because if they didn't provide those lower forces, then we wouldn't have a choice. And they want us to have a choice. They want us to even have the choice to go against them, like the space aliens have done. Yeah, and convince humans to do as well. No, it's pretty easy because they just want humans to stay human. They don't want them to outgrow their humanness. So okay, so doesn't look like there's any new ones, but there's a few more here in the. There's not that many more in the chat here. Casey says, I should have picked better words. I imagine their choice of programs on TV were limited. Well, yes, a choice. There was a crew that was assigned eventually to keeping up with certain shows that TNO approved. They, what was that? No, we weren't watching soap operas and things that would stimulate desire for human behavior. Yeah, well, we did watch Dallas actually. Yeah, we did. I don't remember watching Knots Landing though. We watched a little bit of Charlie's Angels, and we watched a little bit of what's the name of that? The woman that was the you mentioned her earlier today. Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, I love that show. She was fighting Nazis.
And we watched Superman. We watched the Superman movies that came out on the on the picture shows, and there were things TNO would watch things ahead of us and decide whether to give it to us to watch or not. And sometimes they would prep us and say, well, if you see somebody that's naked or something, you got to learn to block it out, or close your eyes during that scene, or look away, or whatever it took, because they didn't want us to not see certain things that they felt like were little next level lessons showing how the next level is working with humans, like the movie Ghost and the movie Starman, and I'm not saying there were human things in those, but the movie about the guy that got hit by lightning, and we saw a lot of things. But they had a next level message in them potentially, because the next level works with the human kingdom through the media. They give people ideas on story development. People that are asking in their own way. They don't necessarily know that they're asking, but the same way they do with inventions. People that are trying to invent, cures for cancer or whatever, have a better car or whatever it is. The next level potentially is helping them with that in different ways. And there's certain things that they don't help them with because they don't want them to develop. Because they'll develop things that can potentially even interfere with their experiment, which I could talk a lot about, but I want to kind of move on. Enjoying your podcast. What do MW1? What about the Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, they're another religious group that is off the track. It doesn't mean that they don't have some true things to say. But all the religions are lumped into the same category. Even the New Age, they've all become distorted and diluted from the truth. The truth doesn't have any religiosity associated with it. And that's why Tiendo chose to not use religious terms, especially in the beginning.
And that's why they didn't want any religion in after they left. They didn't want no prayer.
Right, no group prayer, or because that was meant to be between a person and their older member, wearing robes and burning incense and all the. We did a little bit of burning incense. We had incense in the bathroom to cover up the smells. No, really. And we did have.
Yeah, I believe you, but that's not.
Right, but it wasn't like a prayer
Like
kind of thing.
A mat and say,
right.
Please take away my poop now.
No, no, we had nothing like that. Holy Father, please take away the poopy smells in this bathroom. Well, see, that's in a sense that's we actually the gas that would come out of a human vehicle they called it a poofus, a poofus. They had funny terminology to a lot of things. They had a good sense of humor, excellent, and our thumbnail shows them smiling because they were smiling. They would crack up sometimes.
I love that picture.
When T was talking about the Shroud of Turin, she broke out laughing and she couldn't stop. She was like laughing hysterically because she said she could hardly even say it because she was laughing so hard. She said they're making a relic or making they're worshiping. That's I think what she said. Jesus' snot rag, the Shroud of Turin. Jesus snot rag.
I like that you brought up that the next level influences can influence humans, or like perhaps we could pull on their minds without maybe even knowing it. Like I've been, I started, I ordered a bunch of books that were in the class, and this one is called The Philadelphia Experiment. It's by William L. Moore and Charles Berlitz. And it talks about the Philadelphia experiment. And if you guys don't know what that is, I didn't know actually what it was until I started reading it. Sawyer was like, "Oh, well, I'll tell you," and I'm like, "No, don't tell me. I want to find out." So I don't know if you guys are like I'm not the type of person like I don't read the back of the cover because it basically tells you everything in the book. I like to read it as I go along. I just started this yesterday. It's really good. It's very easy to read. I'm already on page 142. But talking about Albert Einstein and his theory that he was searching for, the unified field theory, which he was trying to come up with a formula, a theory of linking electromagnetism with gravity, gravitational force. And that is potentially how the Philadelphia experiment happened. It was basically a force field that the Navy created, whether on purpose or on accident. They stumbled across it and they basically disappeared a whole ass ship. And then it reappeared miles away, and then it back appeared back where it was supposed to be. And there were people on that ship, and they suffered greatly as a result of that experiment. And this book talks about that. And it talks about a scientist slash researcher slash archaeologist that was studying that and eventually ended up taking his own life as a result of things that he'd learned from that. But it made me think like Albert Einstein and, the theories that he came up with and how he tied things together, and how either that was from space aliens trying to get off the planet and influence select humans to do their bidding, or if he was inspired by the next level. I suppose we won't know until we get there and they let us know if we need to know. I didn't know if I was having inappropriate curiosity as well, but I had I still feel like if I can like hear it a certain way and understand it, that like I don't know, like I'll have some great understanding, like I'm Stephen Hawking or something. Like levitation of big huge objects, and that's how things in the civilization prior to this one built things like the pyramids and just structures that don't make any sense. But if you think about them levitating, things and using electromagnetism, it's hard for me to say that, to basically negate gravitational forces, what you could achieve with that.
Well, I don't know what Joe thinks about it because I don't remember him talking about it much. But we watched a movie in the classroom, the Philadelphia Experiment. Okay.
Which I have not watched.
Yeah, and so I don't remember. I mean, we had the book as well, I think.
Yes, you guys had this book, and then you had another book that Brad Steiger wrote, but this book talks about that book and kind of poo-poos it, so that's
really
quite fantastical, and he sensationalized it, much like he sensationalized UFO missionaries.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So,
but I mean,
but I got that one too.
One of the things that Theodore had said was that the next level can have a spacecraft in this environment, and they can make it so that we can't see the physical spacecraft, and that they can do amazing things. Like even the thing that Jesus said. If you had the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you could move a mountain.
Levitation.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean. I mean, it can mean literally. I think that the next level can do however they do it or can do it, they can do amazing things to us. So they can make things invisible and they can make things appear again. So who knows if the next level actually let the humans stumble on something and even facilitated something. I don't know.
I do feel like that was space aliens.
Right. So
the Philadelphia experiment specifically, because it so negatively impacted.
Well, let's say the space aliens
came across, stumbled on it.
Let's say the space aliens have a spacecraft that they were given by the next level at some point.
They took when they left.
Right, exactly. That had the capacity to lift up huge devices or things like a ship and make them invisible in order to impress the humans with something, right? To get the humans to keep on working in that direction, to keep on experimenting with stuff so that they could develop spacecrafts that could go into outer space and get off the planet.
Right, because they hadn't gotten off the planet at that point.
Yeah.
1943.
So we don't know. It's possible, I guess, right? And so it's interesting. And we go back to the chat. Or is there anything else you want to say about that?
Well, just what I said isn't. It's not like it's some profound thing or anything, but it follows up with what I was reading in session 3, Beyond Human. Oops. I have a lot of them too. Where is it? He's talking about maybe one more page. Right. Lucy's camp will influence you to do a task. And hold on. Here we go. At this point, we have to go back and remember that when Satan was booted out of the household of our father's corporation, he had a heavenly body in the making. According to the record, he took a third of the heavens with him. Must have been a bunch of people, and they had heavenly bodies in the making. They also had a lot of technical, advanced information, beyond human technology. They knew how to get from here to there in different means, certainly than humans in this age would know. Some knew how to appear and disappear. They had a body that had all kinds of capacity that human flesh on this planet in this age do not have. Don't be confused. They are not heavenly bodies. Heaven is where our Father is. They were cast out of where our Father is. The moment they were cast out, they no longer had heavenly bodies. They had what was left of a partially completed heavenly body, a hybrid, similar to what would happen if a caterpillar were removed from the chrysalis before it became a butterfly. What do I mean by what was left? Once they were cast out of where our Father's camp is, they began to be in a condition of perishable. And he asked, what's the other term? And the student says corruptible. Corruptible, that's right. The most normal condition for them are corruptible and perishable. But the point that I wanted to, like, with as far as they can appear and disappear, and yeah.
Sure, Kathy was reading from, you want to say?
Beyond Human Session 3.
Yeah.
Which you can listen to on YouTube at just search Beyond Human and it'll pop up. But you can also go, that's from the Heaven's Gate book, that you can access via www.heavensgate.com. And it is just I don't know if you've got I put it over there. It looks like this. It doesn't come in a binder like that. That's just what I did, just so everybody knows. If you're wondering, like, why does it look like that?
You want me to get one?
Oh, no, I don't
All
think it's too terribly
right. Okay, so Casey says, no, I read that already. Larry Alshiba says, hi there all. Hello to you. MW1 Online says, enjoying your podcast. What do you about, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses. I already talked a little bit about that. Larry Alshiba says, last time I saw you without a beard, Sawyer, was on the 1992 question and answer videotapes with Doe. Yeah, I've shaved before, not too long ago, and I grew it back and now shaved it again.
Yeah, he hadn't shaved since he left the group.
Right, until some time ago.
His vehicle's daughter had never seen him without a beard.
Right, and she's in her 20s now. Larry Alciva says, looking good. Yeah, Heather Craven says, were you allowed to have visitors over? No, we didn't have visitors in the classroom. It wasn't a human environment. We weren't trying to build friendships, even with one another. We were trying to learn to be crew members. Doesn't mean we didn't like each other. Didn't mean that we didn't have challenges with one another. And like some of us, might like some more than others. And we had all those human characteristics because we had humanness to overcome. But there was no socializing with the community that we were living among, except if we had an out-of-craft task, a job in the world, then we were to be polite. And, we weren't preaching to those individuals that we worked with because we wanted to stay hidden. We didn't want to proselytize. We weren't looking for new members. For 17 years, we didn't look for any new members. We were working on our own behavior and ways. And no, there were no visitors. Larry Alshiba says, Kathy, can I get a t-shirt like that? It's very hip. I love it.
You can search online for them, but we that's what I did.
Yeah,
that's how I found that. So.
Right. Because we're not selling those anymore. We are.
We're selling these.
We are still selling these, the ones with T&O on them.
Maybe after this lawsuit, we can go back to selling these ones, but as of now, that's off the plate. But thank you.
Science to Geek says, isn't the Philadelphia experiment proven to be a hoax? Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was or not. I mean, there's people that that think everything is a hoax, and who knows whether there's
I just started.
disinformation associated with it.
Yeah, I just started reading about it today. And not that my opinion matters or is of any value or whatever, but my opinion is that it is a very real event that happened. And anytime the government tries so hard to disprove something, I think that means it's true and that it actually happened.
Yeah, you can see a lot of examples of that, right?
There's documented of the sailors that were on the ship that was disappeared, teleported. It's hard to find, but there's documentation of those sailors and what happened to them afterwards. And they all became stark raving mad for the most part, or they simply died. 3 of them just straight up disappeared, like just vanished without a trace. One walked through a wall in front of his children and his wife and 2 other crew members and was never seen again. No trace of him was ever found. So I think when the government tries really hard to make people insane or look insane, that's that's one of their main tactics, I think. Like anybody that believes in UFOs are, considered as mass hysteria or hallucinations, or there's just a strong cover up in place. And I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, like
just my personal.
I've talked with people that think that the idea that there are dead people among us, think that's a bunch of baloney. That's a big hoax. Okay, but I believed it when I met T and Noah. Before that, even though I wasn't studying it, it made sense to me that there was truth to it. Okay, and then some years after I left the group, I had experiences with seeing things that were unmistakably, well, I mean, there's always a degree of you could think that it was a figment of my imagination, okay? But when it happens over and over again in different circumstances, and you're not under the influence of substances or anything, you gotta wonder whether those are real things that we're experiencing. Especially when there's hundreds of years of historic documentation of people experiencing things with the unseen world. So I wouldn't say anything is a hoax entirely. Now, there could be hoax aspects to it.
Right, people jump in and say XYZ
Yeah.
to profit or be involved.
All right, so Jeff's here and he says greetings.
Hello, Jeff.
And S6A6M6 says, is the interview going to play in this live video? Thanks.
Yeah, we can go ahead.
We're going to still do it, so let's see if we can. Do you want to get through? There's only a few more comments here.
Yeah, go for it.
MW1 Online says, hope I'm asking the right questions. Well, I haven't heard you say anything that was inappropriate. So, most questions are fine questions, as far as I'm concerned. There aren't any really wrong questions. Heather Craven says, why did they all have a quarter in their pocket when they died to call home? Who would?
A short answer if you want to get through those, or maybe
Sure.
just play the interview and then answer those questions.
Actually, the rest of the questions are related to that same subject. So I would try to answer it quickly.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the person's going to stay for that.
I just know that's a very long answer, so.
Well, it can be
Right, so.
by going to the Mark Twain stuff.
Yeah.
But,
So.
so I'm not going to go through all of that. But Mark Twain said that the price to get to ride the comet's tail to heaven was $5.75.
They didn't have quarters in their pocket. They didn't have just a quarter in their pocket. It was.
Some did though.
Reported like
Windody had $5.75.
Right. No, I'm just saying they didn't have one quarter in their pocket.
Right.
They just have 25 cents in their pocket.
Right.
I don't know if you read the question incorrectly or I heard it wrong, but I thought I heard you say that why did they have a quarter in their pocket? Like a quarter, like one. That's all I was addressing.
Right. Right. There wasn't just one quarter. And anybody that I heard reported. I wasn't there, so I didn't know exactly.
Right. And honestly, since you weren't there, we don't, it's just speculation. As far, but an educated guess, of course, but
Yeah.
Can't say 100% that some had different amounts, it seems like.
Right. It did seem like some had different amounts. But sometimes it was reported that everybody had the same thing. I don't think that was the case. But but we did have money on us when we went out to do a job. At one point, we had like less than $1. I thought it was like 75 cents for making a phone call. Like in the days when the phone there was before the cell phones, when it was a dime to make a phone call and a long distance call was like 35 cents.
He's talking about payphones.
Yeah, for payphones. And then they advanced that to $5, so that if we were outside the job, outside the craft, the place where we lived, and we needed to get a sandwich because our job was taking too long, so we were going to miss what was served in the craft, they gave us $5. So we would sign that out and sign it back in. But the other reason for having money was I know this is kind of the way that Doe thought, was in case T took them before their vehicles died or healed their vehicles and took them on a spacecraft with their vehicles, then they could potentially be sent to some place where it might benefit them to have a little bit of money to do a task. So Doe was covering his bets in regards, which was typical of the way that he tried to think about what his older member would have him do.
Potentially why they all packed suitcases as well.
Exactly. Yeah, so MW1 said I can barely get 2 rolls of quarters from the bank. That came to my mind. Yeah, they don't want to give out that money anymore, do they? $10 a piece, right? I think somebody was reported to have a roll of quarters. I heard that.
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of different.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if the FBI report, which is I think 350 something pages, might have what was on their vehicles. It does have a layout of where everybody was in the mansion, where their vehicles were.
Okay, now I'm going to look for the video player.
It's right back there.
Yeah, I know, but I got to put it on here. I didn't do that yet. I got to turn it on so that it comes through OBS.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is, I think. Okay, so we're going to play this. What?
I want to turn off the AC and the fan, so maybe it'll be a little bit
Oh,
easier.
yeah, good idea.
My knees are killing me. I don't want to get up.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it. Let me just
Sorry.
Make this into a smaller thing. Let's see here. Uh,
Remember Guppy? Guppy, was that a code word?
huh?
Guppy?
What was that?
Guppy, was that our code word?
Guppy?
Guppy. Do you remember that? That was... You wanted to put it on the screen? I don't think that's a good
No,
idea to have. You need to get that Facebook off of there.
Yeah, it's not actually
Sorry,
live.
I thought that was. I was like, I don't think you want that up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it had your whatever. Or that one guy saying that was.
Yeah, right.
Something to take clear your screen or something.
Right. And that one too.
But I didn't really understand that. So maybe that was just an Instagram thing.
What player this is anyway? What player is this?
Wish there was that code on this. Probably set the front door too, so the bugs don't start
All right, let me see if I can capture a new screen here.
I mean, won't the sound still play whether you play it through OBS or not?
Not that one.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No, I have to actually start the capture to go through OBS.
Oh, like. Baby, come on. Baby, I'm not hearing you. Come on.
I don't know why this is a different player than I normally use, so I'm not finding it. What is this player?
I know when bugs start
Why
coming
can't I find this? 1127. Oh, okay. Uh, oh, I see. I made this one. Okay. I just actually got that on the screen here. Okay. I'm sorry. Or maybe I just need to turn. Anyway, so you can talk if you want. Okay, it's still working now. Sorry, I went blank there for a second. I'm trying to figure out why. I'm using a different player than I normally do, and I don't remember how to set this up. Well, let me see, try it the other way. There it is. I can use that for now. Is that right?
I would not do that, babe.
What are they going to see there?
Well, we didn't want them to be able to go to that channel and delete it, basically. But it's too late now.
All right, well, I can turn it off again.
Well, it's too late.
Well, we have to watch the whole thing though to see that, so.
I definitely think that you should take it down.
Okay. So that way it doesn't work. So let me see if, what's the problem with this one? It's not the media player. I know, yeah, I know what I should do. I'll put this on. And then I'll take this, change it from that. And we're going to go to 1127. So I'll start this up and I'll use the media player, same one. Okay, where was it? This is it here. It's an MKV files. Let's see if I can open with media player. Aha!
This is Brad Steiger.
Okay.
When I first heard of the mass suicide of a number
Guys, I didn't realize. I thought that was Dan Garcia talking and not Brad Steiger.
fact that there is no separation.
He's pretty condescending.
Okay. Okay, so let me just fix this.
He's pretty condescending. I mean, you could put the slideshow up instead of us.
All right.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Well, I'm trying to get it together and I see what I did wrong. Anything else you want to put up? All right. So that's what we'll do for now. So without further delay,
it is better to go on a question and answer basis.
Then you set up the situation.
And no time's wasted.
Yeah, it's fine, whichever. I don't really care. I don't want to continue to flow. I just want to, for our own purpose. It really doesn't make a difference how we go about it.
Okay. Well, to be quite to the point, in what position can we be of help? Aid, help, along these lines. Either as news media, governmental, research, what avenue?
Well, it's really very hard to specify. We feel like that we will give you what our job is, and you do with it what you will. We cannot designate certain ways. At least I don't feel like we can.
Well, I feel that you could do our mission a tremendous service if you chose to do so by, in whatever means you have available to you, merely relating that there are two individuals who are here to what is the cliche, show and tell or something, how man may make the transition into the next evolutionary level. Man who desires to do it, how he may do it, and that we will, under the rules that we have to exist under, make that information available wherever it is sought for purposes of receiving the information rather than sought for purposes to discredit the source. We do not exist on a courtesy basis. In other words, we're not out to sell you something. If you're searching for whatever reason, curiosity, but if you want the information that we can share with you, then we want to share it. If you want it for, not suggesting that you do, but should anyone want it for ridicule purposes or for to destroy credibility or whatever your terms may be, then it's a waste of our time and yours and energy.
Yeah, we realize that.
So our whole purpose is to tell to those who want to hear it how they may go through this metamorphic change and become a member of the next level. This is not done in groups. It would never happen as an organization. It's only an individual who says, I've had it with this level. I'm ready for the next. And I will sacrifice everything that it requires to make that transition. For that person, then we have a working ground on which to help him with that information. Also, for the general public, we hope that we can help them understand that any beings that are more advanced than the human level of being are indeed beings of the next evolutionary kingdom. Whether they took their birthday on the planet Earth or on another planet when it was serving as the place where a vehicle could be developed to the point of man and ready for this change.
Let me ask you this. When we look upon the subject of UFOs, it is usually divided, and I'm saying we ufologists in general, it's usually divided into two areas, physical and spiritual. My question is this possible from both? Are they here completely physical, spiritual? Are they manifestation?
It's merely man who has to label them. They are real. They are real.
Are you talking about physically real?
Yes.
Okay.
But they are real at a vibratory control rate.
Pertaining to each individual.
Well, for example, a spaceship can change its its vibration rate. An individual who is a member of the next kingdom can change his vibration rate. He can appear and disappear in front of your eyes because he has developed to that capacity. Do you understand that?
Oh, okay.
So we're not talking, the spiritual is usually less real than,
Is there a common denominator for the design of the craft, the spaceship?
I do not know that information as to, I would say that it's not that limited.
Before I
See,
forget,
that's not
What
our
did you know about? It's not part of our
to
programming.
explain the vehicle. It isn't important. It is to you. But if you really want to know about it, then you can just follow us and we'll show you how to get to the next
That's
kingdom,
right.
and you can learn all you need to know about the station.
well, that, I don't want to play cutesy with you, but one question before I forget it. Okay, you are available to help people that want to go into this next kingdom. In what sense? Let's say people contacted us not knowing where to contact you. How would we contact you?
How are you available?
How are you available? How do you get
Keep in contact with
With
you.
thoughts. With thoughts, yes. We can,
In other words, at this stage we have, or I have, no, say, formal address to contact you at.
No, and you will not have an address. That's an impossibility for us.
we don't have.
So you exist, as you said earlier, you exist on this planet for a specific purpose. And you just stated that we will be in contact through thoughts.
We can pick up that you want to be in touch with us.
This is what I mentioned earlier, that we have been visiting a group, and this is probably one thing that would probably get us killed, but I'll say it anyway. When they pray, when humans pray, they contact the source that we are from.
Okay, I understand that.
Do you understand
I
that?
can understand that.
All
Okay.
right, so when they
If they're
pray,
praying to the highest
that's
source.
right. That's true. Now, if they are praying for truth, then they contact us. And we were called back to them a week later.
She's speaking of a group in Dallas that we visited with, and when we visited with them, they were beautifully open and receptive and hungry for the information that we had. We left them. They immediately, as a human tends to do, tried to let all the areas of doubt come in to discredit us. But they also went and sat and said, let us know the real truth. Let us know the real truth about these certain facts. We were halfway across the nation doing another job and were called back and told we had to go back because they were asking for that information. When we showed up, they didn't want it because we were the bearers of it. And they had spent the week in their own minds discrediting us. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, like I said, I don't want to play cutesy with you, but
Don't hesitate.
don't misunderstand the question.
We want your total honesty. We
Well,
want...
This is a little off of the direct subject. Bonnie, you made a statement that if we wanted to know the whole truth, then we would contact you, and we take it from there. Okay, one question that popped into my mind immediately. I stated earlier, one of our objectives is to educate the general public, as far as you folks becoming aware, factually as we can. were to take this step, do I assume, rightly or wrongly, that we will no longer be in a position to relate facts as we're trying to do now? Because if we take our steps and go into this next kingdom, for all intents and purposes, does that not cease our immediate goal here of trying to get truthful information to the people?
But you will have someone else take your place. Someone else will graduate to the level that you are at now.
Let me say that had Jesus not gone through his chrysalis, then those who he had been the example for could not have been brought that much closer to the truth. And nor would his disciples have been in a position of then administering the truth that he had administered to them. There is a time when you have to be willing, of course, to relinquish that responsibility to someone else, because then you would become a member of the house where your truth is that you would be the truth that you would offer freely to all humans that seek it would be of such greater value and so much more real and so much more fact than what you think as a human is fact and real.
Okay, so in other words, the possibility exists that, say I were to decide to take this step, I could conceivably prearrange with someone to say I will be in contact with you later and let you know this information, so that you can in turn pass it on your level.
You can help them, but there will be a limit to what they can accept. Just like there's the limit right now of what you can accept that we can.
Well, let's say at this stage,
really,
nobody's open-minded as I can be, and of course this is what I was trying to get at. I didn't mean it to be cutesy or smart or anything, but it's something that immediately popped into my head. Well, if we go into this next kingdom, then by necessity it ceases our present purpose right now in our own way of trying to get information across to the general public.
You see, I think it really should be known that the God that humans pray to exists just like you. He made you in his likeness.
Mm-hmm.
And all he's trying to do is tell you to hurry up and get out of this grade of school. And everybody has glorified it to be a religious concept. And now the force of the earth has colored it so that it is preventing people from making it. But that's all that was understood, because let's say our daddy, our boss, whatever you want to call it, knew this would happen. And it was prophesied many years ago that two people would come here at this time, before the close of the age, to give out more information. They have allowed you to see the UFOs. They didn't have to allow you to do that. They have allowed you to see it so that you would know that they exist. And that
it's real.
That's right.
That it is not, and the mental capacity of members of the next kingdom is created energy. Man uses his energy sources to put out to his hands and to make babies and to build buildings and to do all these other things that you, as creatures of the next evolutionary level, can do with a thought. That you have the capacity to perform with a thought. Because you don't vibrate on the way that a man spends his energy level. A man spends himself in every imaginable fashion so that there's nothing left over to be really creative. As a matter of fact, he spends himself so that he keeps his vibrations supremely human.
Let me ask you one quick question. If we, back on an old track, if we were to have to contact you on a thought basis, then what do you refer to as home?
We don't have them. See, all you need to do is just think of us.
And we can get in contact with you.
Okay, now,
Or, let's put it in the human way, just pray to your Father. What you want to.
I don't think that's right.
I mean, whichever is comfortable with you.
Okay, then, do I assume at this point, are you continually, for this, let's call it a time span, in this physical body, and do you discard this physical body at will, or when it's necessary, or what?
We can't give you that information.
Well, actually, are you talking about why we're here?
Sometimes.
Well, I mean, as far as doing this work, we're not talking about, you're talking about the length of time that we are here.
Well, I mean,
Until our death and resurrection.
I mean, well, whatever. I mean, do you, once you return, let me put it this way, do you return to what you refer to as home periodically, and during this stage of the game, is this physical body stagnant here? Is it just for your use? Or let me put one more different way. Since you are supposedly using these physical bodies to be able to do your work, is the real you in a different form?
Oh, other than
Other than
this way.
physically, yes.
We are made in the likeness of man. We have had our graduation from other planets. He was from one and I was from another. It was a creative planet, just like the Earth is right now. This is where you pick up a body. Am I answering your question?
Partially.
Okay. Once you graduate, once you have overcome the Earth, you graduate and you take this body with you. Now, we have other bodies. This isn't the body we graduated into or took with us on our graduation. They are like this. But you must understand that well, it's really hard to put it into
That's
words.
part of what I was trying to explain before we left you for a time. If we were not in for our job in human environment and human level vibrations and human bodies, then what we would have to say would have no truth in it. It would have no meaning to you.
This is something I was trying to get at indirectly. We've always made the statement, and it's a common statement, that life, in all probability, does exist on other planets, but not necessarily as we know it. This is what I was indirectly trying to get at. The real you, in what shape, either physically or spiritually, is it, okay, let's phrase it, is it life as we know it, per se, or is it life totally existent, differently, from a physical standpoint?
You mean, do we look like we have motors and skin and light?
Generally, generally, in reality.
We are made just like man.
Okay,
When
then,
you graduate, you take your vehicle with you. It doesn't change. It changes. You are not limited to the earth and what you can do in the earth. You want to respond?
Well, the breakdown is in how man is capable of seeing that individual. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, man can see only what his capacity is. There's a story about, I don't even remember the story, but there's something I heard somebody say once about a blind man elephant, and someone described his tail, and someone else his ear, and someone else his trunk, and each thought that they had experienced the elephant. You see what I'm saying? In other words, you can look at something, as you well know, someone else can look at it, and you see two different things.
True. Same thing with UFOs. Same thing
Now,
with UFOs.
the breakdown is in the receiver, the person's capacity to explain what he has seen, and also how perceptive he was in seeing it.
Well, this is what I was getting at, is when you said that the UFOs and even such people as yourself, your vibratory status can change.
Right.
That's why I said, depending on each particular individual, they'll see different things.
That's right.
For that same reason.
And it'll also depend upon the atmosphere in which they saw it. I mean, in a certain atmosphere of a certain amount of water or hydrogen or nitrogen or whatever, there might be a pink glow or a green glow or something else. There are so many factors that it would be always a mistake to say that an individual looked like such and such. But what is us, what is real, is what is inhabiting this body. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I realize that.
Okay, because this is what life is. Life is not the body. Life is what inhabits the body. You know that when someone is killed, and the invisible, or the part that some people would call spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it, the invisible part of that body leaves that body, then that flesh is dead. So it's obvious that the life has, the living part of that individual has left it. Now what has to happen when man graduates is that the invisible part and the visible part become a single unit. And he then can work in either. He can go either way he wants to, because he has overcome the density of the physical. He doesn't have to drop a body off somewhere and the invisible part of him leave it, like a man does who is killed on the freeway or dies at a point of old age. But the only thing important that we have to do and to say is how graduation may be attained, and to demonstrate that when an individual has overcome his physical vibration, his earthly vibration, his humanity, that he then gets his birthday papers into not being destructible. In other words, if you were willing to flake off all your humanity and to make this graduation, you would move into an entirely different consciousness. You would change your body over just as the chrysalis in a caterpillar to butterfly. It would chemically and biologically change over, though it would appear the same until the crossover was complete. And then it only changes because you have the control of its changing capacity. It's almost like from that metabolism, a third metabolism is formed.
Okay, is it then conceivable, or this change you're talking about is strictly into the next kingdom? This change cannot be done while you're still living here.
It has to be done. Has to be done while you're living here.
Yeah, you're living here and you make the changeover, but once you make the changeover, you are in the next kingdom. You cannot make the changeover and remain as
You don't remain in the midst of humans doing human activities because you had to leave that in order to make the change. And it would be as foreign to your, you live in such a different environment and controlled environment. To say that he was once, or the life form that came up and developed to him was once in an animal's body. He certainly, after having become a human, is not going to go sit in a den of dogs. It would, there's nothing to be accomplished there, and it would be nothing but a put upon to you. It would be uncomfortable. It would be antagonistic to you. You'd have no place there. And a person who is an individual who is a member of the next kingdom has no place in the environment of jobs and houses and cities and cars and roads and with people.
You could do greater things, using that term to help others.
All right, then how do you presently exist then? Do you exist by having to put up with our, what you call mundane ways, or what?
Well, we do not live on a schedule.
No, I don't mean on a schedule.
No,
as to what you do, when, where, and all that. I mean, how do you then exist?
We eat food, and we sleep some, and we do not have to play human games, if you mean that. You know, like...
No, but still basically, do you still go through the often referred to hassle of having to work for your living and all that, or is this applied to you on a certain basis, or what?
There's we do not work.
As you speak, we work all the time, but...
We do a different kind of work. Like, we're working...
Yeah, okay, that's just what I'm getting to.
You know,
if you
and
do
we
not
are
work...
taken care of. And whoever goes decides to leave the human kingdom. And this is something we cannot share with you. Unfortunately, I wish we could.
We would.
We would if you came to us and said, now listen, I'm not sure what you're saying is right, but it makes some sense, and I would really like to do whatever it takes to...
So let's take a hypothetical question. Once a person comes to you... Hey, man, you got any water? Nice water?
Something for what?
Coke, anything, whatever.
That big picture.
It's kind of
I
dry.
would like some tea. Would you like some tea?
If it's still possible.
No, it's like picture.
If we continue to talk... Oh,
Yeah,
you weren't asked the
fine.
question.
Yeah, forget how I was going to put it. Okay, this is okay, you do not work, per se, as work as I know it. Like, I'm going to have to leave in a little while and going into work. You do not work in that sense. Being human, as it were, and the human nature is, how then do you get supplied? Of course, as I know everything, it's on a working and it's on a monetary level. How do you get your monetary gains, or do you get any monetary gains at all? You must have some monetary, something monetarily supplied to you, because you cannot go to go out and eat without giving somebody the money. You cannot purchase gasoline without paying somebody for it, or whatever.
Well, let's say we cannot discuss that with you. It is provided.
Each individual need, as the need arises, is provided. But this...
Do you request it?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it goes back to the teaching.
But just with a thought, it's requested.
Mm-hmm.
And it is provided. And but this is a process that an individual, if he desires to overcome the human kingdom, this is a process that he learns how to move into.
Okay, this is the perplexity of it, the perplexing part of it for me. If you are here to teach us this or to make us aware of this, is it all that necessary that we convert to the next kingdom? Why cannot we realize this valuable information, as it were, and utilize it here at present? Why is this not possible?
Well, because you have to make room for others that are coming up. You can't.
Yeah, what good would it do a dog to learn to build Coca-Cola plants?
No, I'm talking about, okay, you're going into something better, let's put it that way. You know, you're going into a better quote-unquote world, okay? Why must it be this cycle as opposed to utilizing certain information and making this present existing life or world better with the knowledge of what can be done?
This planet only has a certain time limit on it. And it can only last as a created planet for so long. And you just can't stay. It's like staying in high school.
I don't mean stay indefinitely.
It's like making high school college. You can't stay in high school and stay in it for years and years and then say I graduated from college.
No, I realize that, but
you have to go through the human kingdom on your way to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But you will never be free to do the things that are available to the next one unless you're willing to leave the human kingdom.
Just sort of denounce everything about it.
Yeah.
And that includes all the labels that humans put on things and the ways of the world, because they are man's ways.
Okay, let me ask you a question that would inevitably pop up, and it's human nature, I suppose. You're talking about the possibility of offering euphoria, what everybody is basically looking for, the level type thing, The one question that would come from partly from human nature, partly straight out curiosity. If an individual makes this changeover, the question that's going to come up from anybody, as a rule, what's in it for me? Okay, what happens other than that your knowledge, everything, presumably expands to a much greater level than I know now. Other than that, what is there to go
to? It depends on what your mind is on. If you want a human perennially dies. If your mind, what's in it for you is you would never need to die again. You would overcome decay. You would have the capacity with your mind to create anything you desired, and you would have the capacity to serve as an agent to help humans come up to the level that you have graduated to.
So it's, in a sense, it's kind of like
and you would not be confined to a single planet.
okay, would I get, per se, let's go specifically, would I get assigned duties, let me put it that way?
Your responsibility would be the children of the earth, the ones that are left here, to help them to not have knowledge.
This is what I'm getting at. If this is a responsibility, and indirectly, or whichever way you want to phrase it, it comes back. Why then is it necessary to have to go into the next kingdom? Why can it not be utilized here, presently?
Because a human cannot even have the capacity to understand what is good for the humans. It's or what the next step is. A human doesn't even have that capacity.
Well,
You can't be a dog who lives in the gutter and makes out with every bitch that comes along in heat and ever expect to become a human. You just can't do it. Now, if you're a dog who has turned his life over as a seeing-eye dog, and his only pleasure is gained in serving his master, even to the point of giving his life for his master, then he stands a strong chance of graduating. He doesn't have wings. He hasn't even gone through that process of separating himself from the caterpillar.
That's the point I'm making. At that rate, on the evolutionary scale, how long has all of this been in the process?
More than your mind could possibly comprehend.
Okay, this is again the point that I'm making.
Now, during that time is when some graduates are made from the human level to the next one. When that light begins to recede, because its season is over, then that knowledge and that information will not be available until that light comes again at its next season. That doesn't mean that lower levels of graduation will not be made, but not graduation levels from the human level to the next level.
As director of the International UFO Bureau, I can only recap, summing it all up, that the grandeur and splendor of our awesome and mysterious universe has always challenged the minds of mankind. Where did it come from? Why does it exist? And what is the purpose behind it? Is our existence the result of intelligence, or are we mere cosmic orphans adrift on the oceans of time and space? Today, as we explore outer space, many of our leading scientists agree that millions of other worlds must exist, and that some may sustain civilizations further advanced than our own. Some contend the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, commonly called and known the world over as flying saucers, to be a manifestation of these other civilizations. Others, with equal sincerity, believe that their explanation for their existence lies in the realm of the natural sciences, while others have contended the UFOs are a manifestation of God. On Saturday morning, July 13th, 1974, I was involved with answering routine correspondence when I was approached by two individuals. Little did I realize at the time what would result from that meeting. The two were calm, neatly dressed, and both in their 40s. What they had to relate during our conversation was most interesting, as they related that they were alien to the earth and offered a solution to the UFO controversy. What was their message for mankind? Simply that they had come to the earth in what we refer to as a UFO from another level above humans, incarnated as humans, and awoken in order to demonstrate death overcome as Jesus did 2,000 years ago. One might say, like a repeat performance, except this time by a man and a woman, to restate the truth Jesus bore, restoring it to its accurate meaning, and once again show that an individual who seeks that level or kingdom will find it through the same process. At the end of our conversation, I was given a simple sequence code to use if I ever needed to get in touch with the two. As I told NBC Dateline in Burbank on March 28, 1997, I walked the two out to the street, said goodbye, turned around, took a few steps, turned back around, and the two were gone. To this day, I cannot explain where they went or how they did it. It was not until almost 15 months later that public meetings were held by the two, first in California and then in Oregon. As a result of these meetings, a great deal of media coverage was generated. Newspapers and magazines across the United States bannered headlines. However, the general public, for its interest, was giving misleading or false information, as only a handful of individuals understood its meaning. At this point, 15 months later, I decided to use the telepathic code for the first time that I was given. To my surprise, the following day, I received a telephone call and later a visit from one of the followers of the two. He related that he had been directed to contact me by the two, as now I ask for the truth. Again, to this day, I cannot explain how this happened. We were thousands of miles apart. Several weeks later, the two reappeared in Oklahoma City, and we were once again talking. It wasn't until some times later that I realized the full meaning of what was written in the book Predictions for 1974. It said, "Watch for startling announcements from Hayden C. Hughes, international UFO expert who will be in the headlines." If I had spoken up then when the two asked me to, and not have waited until I did, the headlines would be startling then and now not 23 years later. After the Oklahoma City meeting, I arranged an interview with the two and the National Enquirer in Fort Smith. The meeting was held in early December. However, the story was killed and never appeared. It is interesting to note that the night prior to the interview with the two and several followers, they requested a free night's lodging from an innkeeper in Fort Smith. His reply in granting permission was simple. If you are not who you say you are, then it's on your conscience. However, if you are who you say you are, then it's on my conscience. Following the interview, the two returned to Oklahoma City. During the following 5 weeks, information was supplied by the two for the teachings of the two, which was published 6 months later as UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. Once again, another interview was set up and in Fort Smith, this time with the New York Times Magazine. The article appeared in the February 29, 1975 issue. It was this article the media picked up on with Heaven's Gate in late March 1997. 5 years before I was contacted by the two, the International UFO Bureau published the results of a study of the most commonly reported UFO occupants. The occupants were illustrated by the noted UFO artist Hal Crawford in 1969 and appeared in The Aliens 1970. The following year, the illustrations were published in the January 24, 1971 issue of the National Enquirer. I could not understand why this man looked so familiar to me. What was it that made me feel that I knew him? By chance, I had a photo of Herf on my desk at the same time the illustration of the second most commonly reported occupant was. Is this a cosmic coincidence? The two are almost identical. After investigating UFOs for 40 years, 1997 is the 50th anniversary of modern-day UFO reports. UFOs, perhaps they spoke the truth, or was it simply the greatest con? Were these two prophets or merely imposters? One thing is for sure, they turned out to be UFO missionaries extraordinary.
Well, I guess that was, yeah, I know it was pretty hard to hear in the beginning. And seems like there's no new comments, so I'll probably close down the live stream because I need to get up pretty early. But just one point, was that right up until the days before they left their vehicles by their own choice. They were prepared to walk on board the spacecraft with their vehicles. They preferred that, actually, according to Giunotti in the away team document from Deep Space Surfaces Before Departure, written in 1996, that they preferred to leave by walking on board a spacecraft, but that they were willing to leave by whatever method came about that the next level chose for them. And of course, their choices were guided by Doe. And Doe's choices were guided by T. And I know there's people that are not able to see that because they don't want to or they just aren't capable. But those are the facts, and those facts can be borne out by listening to many of the tapes of how T was 100% on board with getting Doe started so that he could finish the task that he started 2,000 years ago without T's presence physically. And because it was his task, that's the way the next level works. The older members don't do everything themselves. They prepare younger members to become older members to, like T said in this interview, to help humans that were coming up, the souls in those human vehicles, change over their thinking and their behaviors and ways to being compatible with the behaviors and ways and thinking of members of the next level. They're not becoming robots. In fact, it's the opposite. They're becoming individuals for the first time because in the human kingdom, we are largely robots, whether we know it or not, because we're guided by all the discarnates and the thought forms and those individuals that are considered to be the space alien souls that are here because they didn't want to go through the learning step of taking over a human vehicle in order to awaken within awakening that vehicle under T and Doe's leadership. And so because they didn't choose to do that when they were given the opportunity to do it, they ended up becoming limited to the earth. They couldn't leave the earth like they used to be able to. Now that doesn't mean that they can't go into outer space, but it's only the near outer space that they are limited to. I don't know that Doe ever described exactly where that limitation was, whether it's the solar system or the Van Allen belt or whatever it is. I don't think it's the Van Allen belt, but I could be wrong about that. I don't. Well, but they certainly can be in the upper atmosphere of the Earth with their spacecrafts, and they could be in orbit around the Earth for thousands of years. Is my understanding that, and that humans wouldn't be able to see them or detect them, and so they're allowed to be here by the next level, so that they can influence humans to have a choice, to think this is a whole bunch of hocus pocus, what these two individuals were teaching, or not. So they were giving us the bottom line in like Doe's examples of a dog being restricted to the dog kingdom if they didn't grow to serve a human master, according to what the humans desire, not according to what the dog desires. To become a seeing eye dog is something that wouldn't be common to a dog to ever grow to become, unless there was a human to give them that training and that opportunity to serve the higher level above animal. And it is the same thing with the human kingdom and the next level kingdom, that we can't become members of the next level unless we first take on the teachings and behaviors and ways while we're in the human kingdom, according to the recognition of who our master is. And like a dog, all dogs don't recognize humans as their master. And so all dogs don't actually become, want to be of service. And the dogs that don't want to be of service, they remain dogs. They remain in the wild, or they remain pets maybe, that just, do next to nothing, no service to the next level, to the human kingdom. Or they may provide some service, like, as a companion or something. And that might be the degree of their growth, of the spirit of that dog, that can one day even potentially merge with, however you want to look at it, with a new human vehicle. And however that progression can take place, because, like Tiendo said right from the beginning, this time period of that's still going on to some degrees in the different kingdom levels is a time when all kingdom levels can have accelerated growth. And that accelerated growth is provided by the older members, but everybody doesn't recognize uh, the older members all at the same time and in the same way. Because we're all in potentially different grades in school, and nobody knows who is ahead of who. It doesn't matter who is ahead of who. There can be people listening to me right now that can be way ahead of me. And it's of no value to try to judge one another. But we all have the possibility of gravitating to Tiendo's information and growing as fast as we want to grow. And right now, the task is to uh, disseminate their information to other people, so that everybody, potentially even on the planet, has some opportunity and more and greater opportunity to hear the truth that came from Tiendo's minds. Those that never hear of Tiendo are even observed, can potentially be observed by the next level, by their crews, through their computer systems, according to what they're capable of growing towards, and asking for help, like T was saying. When humans pray for the highest truth, what's real, and for help, that goes to where they are. And they don't have to know the names Tiendo to be actually contacting Tiendo, even though Tiendo provide and crew provide many, many, many opportunities for everybody to potentially hear about them. But nothing's lost in the next level. So everybody that wants to grow, if they continue to want to grow, they will eventually find themselves seeing Tiendo's information and choosing whether to keep on growing towards understanding it and putting things into effect that they gave us to put into effect. And so those are the great, and a lot of that has to do with discarding the things in the human kingdom that don't mean anything to us anymore, like pursuing the career to try to make money or to become famous or to raise families or it doesn't mean that individuals that have families now are doing anything wrong with that. They're not. They're responsible for the children, but but the children don't become their whole reason for existing, and the children aren't responsible for the adults, their parents, to take care of them until they die and stuff like that. Uh, um, each individual grows according to their own pace and their own what they are subject to, what they are participating in, what they have become, what they have chosen in the human kingdom. And there's no quick fix by just somebody exiting in what's called in the human kingdom suicide. Uh, we need our vehicles in order to learn lessons. And Tiendo was saying that in 1975, that we need the human kingdom in order to graduate the human kingdom. We need to have experience with it. The individuals that left had the experiences they needed. And so it was time for them to leave, and it was perfectly natural for them to want to leave in any way that the next level gave them to do it. And I know many people in the human kingdom think that's a bunch of baloney. But they don't. They also don't recognize that there are creators of this. This place didn't just come about by accident, and does have a purpose, a number of purposes. And so if somebody isn't open to that idea, then they're never going to see beyond the limitations they've imposed upon themselves by their choices. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It just means that it's not their time, potentially. I don't know. The next level are the ones who judge everybody. And they can save spirits, they can save souls for future opportunities to grow. And they don't waste anything. But if somebody chooses to work against them and tries to teach people that anything they're saying is wrong and and that it's impossible and it's insane and that they should be stopped, well, they're really taking a chance with their soul being able to grow. And I'm not going to say that it's still impossible for them to grow because I'm not the judge of that. But it is taking a big turn towards the lower forces mind to determine that they know what's not true. So anyway, I know, I've said a lot there, and I didn't intend to say all that, but I feel like I need to cover some of that ground over and over again because there's so many misconceptions that dominate people's minds surrounding everything T and D were teaching. And I could talk for another 3 hours about it and still not cover the same material over and over again. But because there's so much. And so I really encourage everyone to really dig into their book and find the audio tapes. They can be found when somebody wants to find them. Ask T and Do how to find them in your mind, and then go with what you feel to do to try to find them, because I can't provide them right now. Otherwise, we potentially could get shut down. And even though if we're shut down, it's not the end of the world, of course. The next level is going to see to it that everybody has access to what they want. But we have the service right now of providing some of that until we leave our vehicles, whenever that happens, however that happens, which is according to what the next level sees fit for us. That's where I think Kathy is of the same mind that we want to serve, and we'll serve as long as we can through these vehicles. And that's actually the task that everybody has. It's not a special task necessarily, because everybody has that task. And growing into that task is part of the task. Because the next level isn't about resting on your laurels like the religions teach. You know, that you believe in such and such, and then all of a sudden you're gonna, wake up in the rose garden, of life, in the heaven. Doesn't work that way. That's the delusion. That's the illusion that's been bombarded on the human kingdom, but that each person can actually see through if they choose to. And so everybody's got the task to provide their information working for dough and tea. We're not working for one another. We're working for tea and dough. And they see to it that we are given the opportunities to serve them by providing their information to others. That's what dissemination of the information is. And there's no limits to that. There's no description of how to disseminate the information. It only works in this way, this shape or form. And word of mouth is a big part of it. Speaking from our own minds to what Tiendo taught, that we recall from what Tiendo taught, quoting them as much as possible, but using our minds to draw on them while they're out, not knowing whether they're actually giving us the words, but trusting that they will if we ask them to, and learning by our mistakes on who to say something to and who not to say something to, because it's not meant for everybody at the same time to, we can actually, say too much in a sense. Not that we're trying to hold back, but we only give what people are asking for, except in the circumstance that we're in right now, where I don't know if everybody's asking for what I'm saying right now. So I am, but we're at that stage now where, like Tiendo were always talking about, that they get bolder and bolder, and because the time is short. I don't know what that means. That could be many years, but because we don't operate on like a fear level. It's not like a doomsday. It's really not a doomsday cult. The cycles are natural to happen. Everybody's going to lose their vehicles, and we don't need to look for ways to accelerate that. We have the opportunity now to serve them, T&O. And if we don't want to be of service, then we don't want to become a member of the next level. And service is always difficult. It's Kathy has said a few times that she has to kind of convince me to do it. I wish that wasn't the case, but to do these live streams. But it's not really. I don't really want to push people in any direction, and that's not what we're doing here. We're not pushing anybody, because it's free will to be here. And that's the way the next level operates. But once I'm engaging it, I recognize that it is from my older member's mind to be talking to everybody for as long as we can, because of the experience we've received. Now, Kathy's received a lot of experience by her study, by her asking Doe for help and for direction and for service. and she's helped me an awful lot. Actually, um, do more. So I'm very thankful for that partnership. And with that said, I'm gonna just look at the comments again briefly, and then I'm going to turn in for the night so that I can get up at a reasonable hour and do some work to make some sticks so that we can buy our food and things like that. That's the only purpose we have to working jobs, is to be able to continue on with different tasks that we believe T and O want us to do for them. Not that I was left behind for that purpose. No, I was left behind because I had more lessons to learn that I chose to want to work on. Even though I didn't consciously know what I was doing, I recognized that there's a number of things that I have to learn from still being here, and I can take advantage of that for as long as possible. So HPM reporting says, thank you for sharing. It's nice to hear this interview finally shared with the public. Have a good night. Thank you for providing this to us, HPM reporting, because I hadn't heard it before. And I was familiar with the interview that was published in the UFO Missionaries book that talked about some of it, but there was more that I didn't see in the book. So this was really good to hear, even though some of it was hard to hear, especially in the beginning. So MW1 Online says, thanks for serving 2-in-1, and you're welcome. And good night, folks.